Ladies and gentlemen, the following contest is scheduled for your listening pleasure. Making his way to the ring, your host of the Turnbuckle Topics Podcast, here's Pat Deneen.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Turnbuckle Topics Podcast. I'm your host, Pat Deneen, and what better way to start off 2025 than, well, talking about Raw is Netflix. Debuting tonight, Monday Night Raw on Netflix. It's huge. It's a major happening. And to be quite honest with you, as a longtime wrestling fan, WWF/WWE specifically, watching the very first episode of Monday Night Raw, January 1993, which primarily spent most of its time on the USA Network, and now moving to Netflix here in 2025, it's massive. I mean, if you just take a quick look at tonight's card, you have Drew McIntyre versus Jey Uso. Then you have CM Punk going up against Seth Rollins. Now, folks, this was a matchup we were supposed to get last year at WrestleMania 40. Obviously, we all know what happened. CM Punk went out with the injury, and so that was that. They had a world title opportunity at hand at Mania between the two. So this is a match that most of us thought was going to take place this year, later this year, WrestleMania 41 in Las Vegas. But here we have it today, January 6th. We also have Rhea Ripley going up against Liv Morgan for her Women's World Championship. And we have a tribal combat match. Now, whoever wins this gets full ownership of the Ula Fala. And obviously Solo Sikoa has been holding it in the meantime. But at least the vast majority of us, including myself, want Roman Reigns, the OTC, the original tribal chief, to win this match. Although, I'm not going to do predictions or what I necessarily think might happen tonight, but I don't see it happening that easily. As much as I'd love to see Roman leave Monday Night Raw versus Raw Netflix tonight with that Ula Fala yet again, I don't see him winning it. Now, does that mean Paul Heyman turns on Roman Reigns? Does that mean The Rock turns on Roman Reigns? We'll see. Now, it was confirmed Sunday that The Rock will, in fact, be in the building. We're going to talk about some of the names that will be there tonight, but The Rock went on to say, accompanied by a nice minute or so video of the final boss, he said, "Besides having my 3 daughters, my Samoan High Chief title, one of the greatest honors of my life, I gave my word and made a commitment 20 years ago to His Highness, High Chief." I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name here, guys, because I'll be here all night trying to say this. But long story short, he says he's going to carry on his Samoan, Polynesian, and black culture around the world with great respect, pride, kindness, mana, humility, and warrior spirit. After 20 years of proudly carrying our culture with me around the world, I can't wait to soon return back home to Samoa. I already have chills just thinking about it. And he pretty much, in short, says, until then, I'll come back home to WWE Monday night as we make history on Netflix and begin a new and exciting era. And then he did a brief tribute and shout out to tomorrow night. It's dedicated to my grandfather, the High Chief Peter Maivia, my grandmother, Leah Maivia, and my dad, Rocky Soulman Johnson, and my ancestors who have all, in caps, paved the way. Now, of course, he got his name Rocky Maivia, the Rocky from his father, again, Rocky Johnson, Maivia from his grandfather, High Chief Peter Maivia, hence Rocky Maivia, which, within a year and a half, not even, became The Rock. You know, started off as a babyface, Intercontinental Champion, who debuted at Survivor Series 96, then made his way over to the Nation of Domination, right, in 97, and then shortly thereafter, you know, during his tenure with the Nation when he was very hated, and he became The Rock. So, all that being said, I see a lot of great things happening, obviously, tonight on Raw. Now, outside of the matches I made mention of and The Rock officially making it known that he will be in the building for Raw, it was also made clear that we will also be seeing Logan Paul. We will be seeing Bianca Belair and a couple of other superstars. Cody Rhodes, the American Nightmare, how could I forget? The undisputed WWE Champion Cody Rhodes. And last but certainly not least, John Cena, kicking off his farewell tour in 2025. Now, when he made this announcement back at, I believe it was Money in the Bank in July of 2024, that this would be happening, that this would be taking place, talking about his final Royal Rumble, his final Elimination Chamber, and his final WrestleMania. he made it known that he wasn't going to wrap things up necessarily at WrestleMania. He's looking to do anywhere from 30 to 40 dates. Now, has that changed since he initially said it a little over 5 months ago? Perhaps, but if so, maybe for the better. Maybe instead of 40, maybe he wants to do 50 dates. Maybe he's feeling generous. So again, 30 to 40 dates at least for John Cena. That doesn't mean we're going to get 30 to 40 matches. Maybe we get somewhere in the realm of 10, 12, maybe 13 matches. They don't all necessarily have to be singles, although I think most of them will be. And we'll probably get a tag match here and there, but again, that's an episode for a whole other day that we could go on for hours and hours about potential opponents for John Cena at certain events, PLEs, on Monday Night Raw, on Friday Night SmackDown, and so on. So I'm excited. I know a lot of you guys are. That's why to make sure I hopped on here today and spoke about Raw is Netflix. I know it's been a while since I've been on here and came on and recorded a podcast. It's certainly my first one for 2025, but if you haven't noticed by now in these first few minutes, I am thoroughly excited, and I'm going to enjoy this historic event of Raw going to Netflix. We're going to see how it goes. Hopefully there's no buffering issues like we had on November 15th when, Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. I don't think we're going to have those kinds of issues, but I do think that, I do know that we're going to be starting a very new and exciting era here in WWE in 2025. And as a fan of professional wrestling as a whole, I couldn't be more excited. Again, I grew up a big WWE fan. If you've been following me for the last couple of years on this podcast, I've documented it. That's what got me into it. Of course, I've watched several other promotions over the years, whether it was WCW, ECW, TNA, even now these days, AEW, little Ring of Honor here or there, if you will. But it dates back to the late 80s for me. It goes back to those WWF golden years, the golden era, right? Late 80s, early 90s. Took a little hiatus in the mid-90s, I guess you could say, during the New Gen era. But I did stick around the first time to see Monday Night Raw kick off in January of 93. And then I hopped back in probably around 96. Hopped back in right before the Attitude Era got kicking off. And, man, it's been a lot of fun times, fond memories as a pro wrestling fan. And this being my third time really locking into pro wrestling again. Golden Era, Attitude Era. I hopped back in about 2011 after not watching for the better part of a decade, which I didn't think I was ever going to watch pro wrestling again, I'll be honest. And I've said this story time and time again. A good friend of mine invited me out. 2011, WrestleMania 27, which, by the way, I think I read something recently that WrestleMania 27 was the only WrestleMania where no titles changed hands, which I found to be incredibly interesting as well. But, 2011, that was when HBK went into the Hall of Fame. This is where The Rock hosted WrestleMania 27. I believe it took place in Atlanta, Georgia. The Rock and Stone Cold had a face-to-face backstage. That was enough for me to be locked back in, just based on the nostalgia unto itself, right? Never mind the matches that took place. I know a lot of people mention that WrestleMania and they say, could take it or leave it. Wasn't that great collectively? That was also Edge's last match, right, with WWE until he returned at the 2020 Royal Rumble, I believe. But anyway, here I am all these years later, back into pro wrestling as a fan yet again, and I couldn't be more excited. So, again, I'm not going to necessarily give predictions, but I guess let's discuss it for a few minutes here. Drew McIntyre versus Jey Uso. I'm going to have to go with Drew McIntyre probably getting the win here later tonight. I'm excited for the match, of course. I'm excited for the whole night and what's going to transpire. Again, John Cena appearance, Rock appearance, then these 4 matches I made mention of, and who knows what's going to happen during these 3 hours. Raw going back to 3 hours for the first time since this past September, following Bad Blood that took place, Saturday, October 5th. We were getting 2-hour episodes of Raw, and personally, I loved it. I loved it as an avid fan of pro wrestling, watching almost every day or night. Right, 2 hours is perfect. It's the sweet spot for me. 3 hours, even if the show is booked incredibly well, is a lot. It's incredibly overwhelming. And so now that Raw and SmackDown are both 3 hours apiece, 6 hours opposed to the 4 we've been getting for months, it's a lot. And although I thought SmackDown was very good this past Friday, and shout out to Tiffany Stratton, Tiffy Time. I thought that was a perfectly executed 3 minutes, getting that Women's World Championship off of Nia Jax, cashing in that Money in the Bank contract. So well done. But anyway, back to this matchup. As much as I love Jey Uso, I love to yeet just as much as all of you ladies and gentlemen out there love to yeet. He's over more than anybody else. Again, you saw on SmackDown in that main event, going up against the new bloodline, Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga, Jey Uso coming out with his brother, Jimmy Uso, Sami Zayn, or Sammy Uso, however you want to refer to him as. I mean, man, talk about being over, and Sammy just basking in it. Like, wow, this is insane how over Jey Uso is. It really is. So, talk about a guy not needing a title to be over and make a statement and sell merch, right? And so that's Jey Uso. So, as much as he's great and all that, I think Drew McIntyre gets a pretty definitive win. I think it's going to be a fun match. I'm going to probably talk about this women's match last. I want to save that for last just because that's a title on the line, right? CM Punk, Seth Rollins. This is a very intriguing one. I think this is the first of many matches to follow. When you talk about this kind of matchup, it's, you could cut the tension with a knife. Forget a knife, probably a freaking chainsaw, right? I mean, it is just so brutal between these two, the disdain they have for one another, the promos they've cut on one another. I know a lot of you guys out there, a lot of you ladies and gentlemen, very biased, and I understand. You know, a lot of you are either hardcore Seth Rollins fans, diehard CM Punk fans, or you just can't stand either one for whatever reason. Maybe you don't like Seth because of the way he dresses. Maybe you don't like Punk just because of, well, his reputation and how he moves in and out of the ring. I don't know. Either way, this is going to be a lot of fun, and this is going to be the beginning of something huge, very special that we're going to be seeing probably take place over the next month or two, at least. I mean, could they have a part 3, a grand finale, if you will, take place at WrestleMania? Yeah, they could conclude the feud there, or at least put a bow on it for the time being, but I don't know. Something tells me they might have separate plans for both of them going into Mania, being that they're doing it this early, but we'll see. So, who do I have coming out the win here? Oh, man, CM Punk, Seth Rollins. I kind of feel like Punk is going to get the win. I don't know. I just, not by a landslide decision here. I just think Punk is going to get this initial victory. And so we'll see what happens. Now, when Punk went up against Drew starting at SummerSlam, right? They had a match at SummerSlam. They had a match at the end of August, I believe it was, Bash in Berlin. And then they concluded their trilogy at Bad Blood, obviously in the Hell in a Cell match. And I think I went with Punk getting that first win. Though I believe that was not the case. I think Drew won match 1, and then I think Punk won 2 and 3. I'm going to go with Punk again. You know, it didn't work out for me that first time at SummerSlam going with Punk against Drew, but I do think Punk is going to beat Rollins. And I think this is only going to add more fuel to the fire, especially for Seth, because CM Punk's just kind of shrugging it off. If you've seen the last couple of weeks, he's like, oh, all right, Seth, well, I'm not thinking about you at all, man. And he's absolutely living in Seth freaking Rollins' mind rent-free. And this is why a lot of people believe that we're sooner or later, and we saw a tease this past Friday on SmackDown with Drew McIntyre showing up on SmackDown and leading to a eventual beatdown of Cody Rhodes by Kevin Owens. We're going to see this alliance of sorts between Drew McIntyre and Kevin Owens. They already planted the seeds there. And potentially, when he finally turns to the dark side, Seth Rollins. I could see these three, whether they're bouncing from brand to brand or whatnot. If they're all on SmackDown, who knows? Because they all have one thing in common. They absolutely despise Roman Reigns. Excuse me. They absolutely despise Roman Reigns and everything that the bloodline stands for, new or old. And so yeah, that's what I see happening. So Seth losing this match is only going to take him to a darker place. He's going to get more and more desperate, and he's going to have people in his ear eventually, whether that's KO, whether that's Drew, whether that's somebody else, who knows. But it's going to be a downward spiral for Seth. Now, that's not to say that he's not going to eventually beat CM Punk or maybe come out on top in this feud. Perhaps that's the case with a little help from his friends or this new faction that might take place. But keep your eyes out. Keep your eyes out on that. It's going to be interesting to see. Now, going to the tribal combat match, again, for ownership of the Ula Fala later tonight. Roman Reigns, the OTC, going up against Solo Sikoa. Solo obviously has the Ula Fala. He's been wearing it for months now. And, again, the majority wants Roman to win this. Of course, there are some people that despise Roman, rightfully so. They just were never fans of him, or maybe you just have some people that love the new bloodline. I respect what the new bloodline's doing, and I'm excited for them. I've said it time and time again when I've went live over the past 5-6 months, especially when they really formed over the summer. They put all their pieces together with Tama Tonga, with Jacob Fatu, with Solo at the helm, whether you like them or not. Excited for these guys. These are all new opportunities. 2 of the guys are new to the company. And then, Solo taking the lead, taking the nod. So, and he's grown into the role pretty good, especially the last month or two, Solo. He's no Roman Reigns, but he's kind of, it took him some time to get acquainted, but I think he's kind of finally hitting a good spot there. So this matchup, again, as much as I think Roman should obviously take the cake here and get his Ulafala back, it's not going to be that easy. Now, I don't think this is going to be a clean victory at all by Solo Sikoa, not at all. Whether it's the help of Tama Tonga, Jacob Fatu, it could be as simple as one of them helping him out. I don't think it's going to be that simple. I think being that we know we're going to see The Rock, this is where we could really see the seeds planted for The Rock and Roman Reigns going forward, whether that's WrestleMania, before then, after then, who knows. Could be something that leads to SummerSlam here in New Jersey this August. If The Rock is not scheduled to have a match at WrestleMania or be a focal point, as it was stated earlier last week, I don't know how much validity there was to it, but I saw the article floating around the internet about The Rock talking to Triple H about how he wants, this year, especially this WrestleMania, all eyes on John Cena, especially on his farewell tour. So make of that what you may. We'll see. Time will tell. But that's not to say that The Rock and Roman can't take place at SummerSlam. And that's something we can look forward to. So could The Rock be the one who ends up, screwing Roman Reigns out of winning his Ulafala back in this match? Could Paul Heyman play a deciding factor? Still don't trust Heyman since he's been back the last couple of months. Ever since he returned, showing up with that red shirt under his blazer or his suit jacket, kind of like how Solo initially came out with the new bloodline many months ago, back in the spring of 2024. Something's up there. Something just ain't sitting right with me. I know a lot of you guys know what I'm talking about here. Or could it go completely sideways? Could Solo outright lose to Roman? Could this be the beginning of The Rock showing himself as the true tribal chief or head of the table for this new bloodline? Maybe this is where they turn on Solo. Maybe he orders Jacob Fatu to take him out. And we won't be hearing, I know a lot of you guys are going to miss it, I'll miss it too. You will no longer hear the, I love you, Solo. We might not get that anymore. So enjoy them when you hear them on these episodes of SmackDown or Raw tonight, where you may get that I love you, Solo. Because sooner than later, we will not be hearing that anymore once Jacob Fatu, maybe against his better judgment, but he's not going to have any choice, especially if The Rock instructs him to do so. Solo will be on the outside looking in eventually. When? Who knows? So that's the only way I could see Solo. If Solo is to lose this match and The Rock is dismayed and they have him booted and The Rock just outwardly takes over, then yeah, maybe things are on for Roman and Rock as early as Mania. But we'll see. We'll see. So let's jump into this Women's World Championship match here where we have Mommy, as some like to call her, Rhea Ripley, going up against Liv Morgan, Women's World Champion. She's held the title much longer than I thought she would. And you know what? Good for her. Jersey native. Can't hate on that. Now, this match here, I would love Rhea Ripley to win. And I don't know, man. I just feel like, again, it's a numbers game, just like with the new bloodline. It's a numbers advantage, and I feel like Liv Morgan having the Judgment Day by her side, whether that's Dirty Dom Mysterio, Raquel Rodriguez, I don't know how much of a factor a Finn Balor, a JD McDonough, a Carlito could play into that match, helping her out. Again, there's a lot of cracks in the foundation of the Judgment Day. I don't know if that new theme song is actually going to help pull them back together, but we'll see. So with that said, obviously, as you guys can kind of see, I'm leaning towards going with Liv Morgan here. Not fully sold on it, but I don't know. I don't like safe bets. I really don't. But I feel like I'm going to lean towards Liv Morgan getting the win here. But I'll be more than okay if I'm wrong, because I would love nothing more than Rhea Ripley to get that championship on her. And maybe that's how they want to start off 2025 with a new WWE Women's Champion on SmackDown and Tiffany Stratton. And maybe a new Women's World Champion on Monday Night Raw, and that being Rhea Ripley, jump-starting the Netflix era. And now, again, we're going to see John Cena later tonight. Again, we'll see The Rock. Maybe we may see him more than once, especially if he's out there to just talk, cut a promo, maybe interfere in a match. Who knows? And then we'll see the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. Again, he's going to be on there. Now, will he be there to stay? We'll see. I know there's been a lot of talk back and forth about Cody potentially moving to Monday Night Raw, mainly because Netflix wants Roman Reigns. They want Cody Rhodes. They want CM Punk. They want a lot of these big names. Again, we're going to see Bianca Belair tonight as well. And these are people, at least Bianca, that's able to jump ship, mainly because her and Naomi are the women's tag team champions. They could go on, even though they're both on SmackDown primarily, they could show up on Raw. They could show up on NXT. They could show up on any show on any given week. But again, what's going to happen with Cody Rhodes? Is he going to eventually remain on Monday Night Raw with Adam Pearce? Will Gunther, the World Heavyweight Champion, then make his way to SmackDown with Nick Aldis and company, join the Blue Brand? Maybe that's the case of what's going to happen there, because we saw this teased, again, a couple of weeks ago. Cody was backstage on Raw, and Gunther was backstage on SmackDown, and we've seen all these people, they planted the seeds for these potential happenings. So could this just be Cody getting people excited for this initial episode of Raw? Sure, and maybe they'll revisit that potential opportunity down the line. They never really let us know how long this transfer window is open. They mentioned it well over a month ago, a month and a half ago, a little before Survivor Series, when we started seeing people from each brand showing up on either show, having conversations with the GMs of said brand. But they never really put a timestamp on, okay, by February 1st, by the Rumble, you have to make a decision, or we have to come to some kind of a conclusion, a trade, a whatnot. So, and I really truly think, of course, they know a lot of the heavy hitters that are going to end up going from Raw to SmackDown and vice versa, but it also involves NXT. Let's not forget the people in NXT. And they're probably also trying to work out a lot of the people in the mid-card, or the people that aren't booked all that very often, that are going to bounce back and forth as well. So hopefully they'll iron that out, probably by the time we're jumping out of the Royal Rumble. Definitely by March 1st. That's the Elimination Chamber, month and a half away from WrestleMania 41 at that point, so obviously that will be a foregone conclusion. But, man, again, this is going to be good stuff, guys, so that's why I'm here to discuss this with you today. I hope you guys are going to be watching Monday Night Raw tonight, and I would love to hop on here to obviously talk about the episode as soon as I could get on here and discuss things. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of groundbreaking stuff. They might have even more news that they need to break other than Raw moving to Netflix tonight for the very first episode. Maybe there's just a new outlook, a new approach, maybe some new aesthetics. Obviously, they have a new logo, Monday Night Raw. We saw on SmackDown this past Friday. They made some changes. The ring mat is blue. I don't know how you guys collectively feel about it. I'm kind of indifferent to it. It's not fantastic, but I guess I could live with it. It's not terrible either. I have nothing wrong with the basic, white or light blue mat they kind of had for years. So we'll see what happens. Are they going to go with a red mat tonight? I hope not. Again, I would rather stick with the lighter mat. I think that's a little too harsh to see week in, week out. It's different if it's like a PLE or a special event, and it's like, all right, it's a one-time thing only, or something you only see once a year, every couple of years. So we'll see what changes are made, but they're going to come through with something good. And again, we will be hearing from Logan Paul tonight as well. Who's he going to be going after for WrestleMania? I've heard names like John Cena that Logan Paul would be going after potentially for WrestleMania, maybe even prior to it. Honestly, when it comes to the conversation about John Cena, there's many matches that he can have with new guys, right? The Braun Breakers, the Gunthers, Ilya Dragunov when he's back, the Carmelo Hayes. The list goes on for days as far as who he could face, as far as the younger guys. Of course, he could revisit feuds with the CM Punk, with the Randy Orton and such. If it were up to me, I'd have John Cena go up against Randy Orton at WrestleMania 41. Regardless who wins, the fans win. I think that would be a great feud or great match to book between Cena and Orton. You got the 16-time champ in John Cena going up against the 14-time champ in Randy Orton. The two guys that many discuss could be the one to get to 17 to surpass Ric Flair, right? Cena's obviously one away. He's tied with Ric Flair right now at 16. Orton's at 14. And if it were up to me, I said this back in the summertime, if Cody was going to drop the title briefly prior to Mania, I would have loved for it to be a very similar situation like Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre back in 2020, right? We were still in the Thunderdome times, right? And briefly in that fall, Drew McIntyre dropped to Randy Orton, but it was okay because Drew would win it back, a month and a half later. This way, Randy was able to go from 13 to 14 title reigns. Drew was able to become a two-time WWE champion, and I thought that would have been great for Cody. good way for Cody to take a little bit of a break, a little bit of a hiatus, take a step back for a month or two, and then eventually become a 2-time champion. And then, Orton would have been able to knock in number 15. And then he's just obviously one away from tying Cena and Ric Flair. And so if it were up to me, I would love a guy like Randy Orton to be the guy to dethrone, if you want to use that word, or surpass, shall I say, Ric Flair and get to 17. Obviously, 3 title reigns for Randy Orton at this stage of his career. Seems like eons away and almost seems insurmountable. But that's what I would do. I've seen the question posed for months now. What would you rather see in John Cena's final run? If he were to get a title, would you rather see him become a 17-time world champion and surpass Flair? Or would you rather see him become an Intercontinental champion for the very first time and become a Grand Slam champion? And honestly, maybe this is an unpopular opinion. Again, maybe it's also because I like Orton more than Cena. It's not that I don't want to see Cena get to 17. It's just I think it would be more wholesome for me, really, because it's something he's never done. And so I would like to see Cena get that Intercontinental Championship by any means necessary, whether it's getting it off of Braun Breaker or whomever else, whenever that time would be in 2025. So, and I feel the same about Sheamus, too. Obviously, Sheamus is nowhere. I don't know how many world title reigns he has off the top here, but I want to see Sheamus, before his career is over as well, become a Grand Slam champion as well, because the one title that's eluded him is that Intercontinental Championship. For years he's been fighting for that. Just in recent history, the last couple of years, he had a couple bouts, a couple close calls going up against the likes of Gunther. Clash at the Castle 2022, Cardiff, Wales, WrestleMania 39. Right, just several months later in that triple threat with him, Drew McIntyre, and Gunther, yet again, just a month ago or so, going up against Braun Breaker, trying to get that IC title. I think it was on an episode of Monday Night Raw, and it didn't work out. So again, I love the IC title, very prestigious. And by the way, while I'm on the topic of the IC title, next Monday on Monday Night Raw, we will find out who the inaugural Women's Intercontinental Champion will be as well in a matchup against. We have Dakota Kai going up against Lyra Valkyria. I couldn't be more excited for these two women. Lyra just came up to the main roster not even a year ago. And Dakota, who has been plagued with injuries for years, getting this opportunity. If it were up to me, I'd have Dakota Kai win the Intercontinental Championship. But if I was a betting man, I'd probably put my money on Lyra Valkyria, because as much as she's done great since she's been on the main roster, she's been coming up short. She made it to the finals of the Queen of the Ring last, May? Going up against Nia Jax. So I think this is where Lyra Valkyria may finally get crowned. But again, I'd rather see Dakota Kai get that win, but it's a win-win for me. So that's my 2 cents on the Intercontinental Championship part. And obviously, going back to a few minutes prior to John Cena. Again, would love to see him get some gold. But that being said, I'm not banking on Cena winning any gold in 2025. I'm really not. 17 would be cool. World title situation. IC title, Grand Slam champion would be great. But I don't see that happening. I don't see it necessarily being 50-50 booking, but regardless, I see him having great matches. He may actually lose more than he wins, but you know what? He's going to put on iconic bouts from, again, revisiting past feuds, maybe with the likes of Punk and Orton, just to name a couple. Going up against a lot of these young guys I mentioned as well. We saw him in Theory. He had a match at WrestleMania 39 where Theory successfully defeated him, right? Was that for the United States Championship? And although that wasn't one of Cena's better showings, probably his worst WrestleMania match, that being said, I think he's going to have a much better showing this time around in his final go-around against the future of the company. So I'm excited. I really am. And with that said, guys, I think that pretty much sums things up for me here today on this episode of Turnbuckle Topics. So Raw is Netflix, man. Raw is Netflix. I'm excited. I know you are too. Enjoy tonight's episode of Monday Night Raw, and I cannot wait to get back here with you guys and discuss everything that took place. All the hell that broke loose, all the mayhem, all the instant classic memories, and I hope you guys have as much fun tonight watching this show as I will. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in yet again to the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I am your host, Pat Deneen, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening.
Got a question for Pat? Send him an email at turnbuckletopics@gmail.com. That's Turnbuckle, TOPIX, @gmail.com. Find him on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Turnbuckle Topics. Thanks for listening to the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. Be sure to subscribe. If you like the show, help others find out about it. Leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. Join us next time for another episode of Turnbuckle Topics. See you then.